Today I'm driving to Santa Ana, California to meet with that guy, Mike Wiseman, CEO of DGWB. We're talking about branding, the ad business, and you see that it's kind of hard on the big conglomerate of the ad world. My name is David Morin. I am the creative explorer. I believe in food, wine, and design. It seems like my whole life revolves around brands and branding, and I like to talk about it. So in my quest for inspiration, I started to meet with the best creative in the nation, and those are my chronicles. Santa Ana, the fourth most densely populated city in the States, mainly known for high level of crime, In-N-Out Burger, unique beauty salon, and vacant homes. By LA standards, it's very unlikely that you would find here in their old city hall one of the biggest independent agencies in SoCal. But here it is, DGWB, best known for its work with fast food restaurants Wiener Schnitzel and the California Avocado Commission. After visiting the Museum of Awards next to the conference room, I finally shook hands with the man behind all that success. We then quickly sat down and got down to business.
What do you think of the ad business right now?
I think it's extremely chaotic. I think it's extremely exciting. This is the most exciting time for small independent businesses ever in this field, because we're not trying to turn the Titanic or turn the Bismarck in the ship in the harbor. We're not 100 years old. We're not staid in our thinking. And clients have a need for independent ideation and thought that's going to change their brand. They don't need another big ad agency that can come in and efficiently handle their business. Which, to me, if you look back at all of the Six Sigma work that was done, in the 80s and the 90s, you look back at most of the case histories of Six Sigma and you find that there are failures. Long-term failures, because all they cared about was efficiency. Not effectiveness, but efficiency. And many of these search consultants and big agencies provide an efficient way of getting your business done. They don't provide ideas. Big conglomerates of this world are run by accountants. They're not run by creative people. I mean, one of the reasons that we got out of the big agency business and started DGWB 23 years ago is that we were answering to a board of directors filled with 17 accountants in New York City. They didn't understand the notion of relationship. They didn't understand the notion of engagement or emotionally connecting with an audience. In their effort to level the playing field, which is the expression you hear all the time, they drum out any sense of uniqueness from the process. And what they're doing is they're just filling a fiduciary financial need that a client has versus finding the spark that's going to change the trajectory of their business. It's a human process, and the science and the business side of the business, unfortunately, has taken over, and many of these conglomerates fail and suffer from the same things that any big organization does. It loses its way. It forgets why it was, the vision of the company either left with the founder who died, got bought out, moved out, and now you have a bunch of middle managers that are there to protect themselves every day, but they've lost sight of why were we in business to begin with? What is the promise that we're supposed to be making? We realized about 5 years ago that we're less about marketing and advertising and more about relationship building. And that's where I started to get reignited about my passion for the business, because after 35 years or so, campaign after campaign after campaign, they begin to blend together. There's some that stand out, and yet you realize that kind of along the continuum of the businesses that we were representing, what kind of impact did they really have, over time that was measurable, something sustainable, not the flavor of the quarter, or the flavor of the month, or that year. I see two economies that are kind of at conflict right now. One is called the transactional economy, and that's in this world of commodity. There's not one product or service today that's not a commodity. Salad dressings on a shelf at Ralph's, electronics at Best Buy. Mm-hmm. Any business that comes to us is confronted with tons of competition in their own industry. And if you're trying to differentiate yourself today as a brand by product attributes, you're dead, because everything on a shelf looks pretty good. But what is it that you can use? What do you have in your arsenal to be able to stand out from that, what we call it the sea of sameness, right? So I think that it's more about this issue of what many of us are guilty of is selling what we make. You have all of these brands slugging it out, saying new and improved and cents off and dollars off and new promotion, quarter after quarter after quarter to drive traffic. And what happens is it's not sustainable over time because there's so many choices that we have as consumers. So on the other side of that equation is what I would call the values economy, which is filled with emerging brands that understand the value of selling what you believe. Tom's Shoes. This guy got involved in shoe manufacturing. He didn't know what his business was going to be. He knew that there was a problem in third world countries with kids getting diseases because they didn't have shoes on their feet. So he gives back, right? So now Tom's franchise is every pair of shoes that he sells, there's a pair that's donated to some kid in a third world country that'll help prevent disease. That's called profit with purpose, not just profit.
What's your favorite advertising book?
I love the Prize Inside, a Seth Godin book, which really, again, has to do with delighting and surprising, the consumer with something that they didn't expect. And his assertion, which I believe, is that every brand does have a surprise inside, but finding it, we tell our clients on a daily basis, discover, articulate, and then communicate your values to your customers. Communicate your values to your employees. If you don't have a set of values that your employees ascribe to and believe in and have purpose when they come in every day, how can you possibly expect an advertising campaign to convince a consumer? Because nobody goes to Louisville, Kentucky to buy KFC, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody goes to Seattle to Starbucks headquarters. They have a relationship with the barista. If you don't have a value set that your employees buy into and believe in, you're never going to be able to have a consistent relationship with your consumer. If we lived out the values that we believe in as an organization on a daily basis, the advertising would become so much easier, because then you're shining a light on the goodness of what's going on in that company, and you're not manufacturing a brand. And I'll give you a really good example. One of our very favorite clients is California Avocados. What had happened was, up until that point, there had been a 99-year ban on Mexican imported avocados. That ban was lifted. So this brand is the California Avocado Commission. What they'd spent time doing in the past was driving demand for a product based on the product attribute of flavor. That was the irresistible taste of an avocado. Well, that worked when you didn't have competition. But now Chilean avocados are being imported, Mexican avocados are being imported, and you have avocados grown in California, but it wasn't enough to drive category awareness anymore. So when we met with the client for the first time, and we stood up and in the first 5 minutes of our presentation said, look, we're not so interested in the avocado as we are what you stand for. What is the real story that we can use to connect with somebody who's going to pay a premium price for a California avocado? And what we realized is that the story, the values, were about the growers. You have growers in this pristine area in the Temecula Valley, right? It's a limited number of groves with small family farms that could have sold out to real estate developers and made a mint and retired, but they didn't. And they didn't because generations of their family had been growing avocados. That's where the notion of hand-grown in California came about, because we realized that the values of the audience that we could go and attract to this message were people that cared about a carbon footprint, were people that cared about sustainability, were people that cared about over-processed foods. And so the very nature of the way that this product is grown was a complete shared values equation with their consumers, right? So it's all about these growers and their stories.
Now that was a great lesson of branding, but now I feel hungry. So since we're in California, home state of burgers, what about an authentic California burger?
So you're gonna need oregano, thyme, seasoned salt, chipotle sauce, and basil.